Hey Jed, thanks for coming to see me. I see you have some questions about the action potential. You have a good understanding of it, but I can help clear up the parts you're confused about. The action potential is the neural impulse that travels along the axon and then causes the release of neurotransmitters into the synapse. The first step of the action potential is the stimulated neuron transmitting information to other neurons. When the neuron is stimulated, positively charged sodium ions enter the neuron. If the electrical charge changes enough, the action potential begins and then moves down the axon to the terminal buttons. Neurons do not touch each other because there is a gap between them called the synapse. They communicate chemically by sending information across the synapse from one neuron to another. This causes a neuron to release information across. This causes a neuron to release neurotransmitters. When the action potential arrives at the end of the axon, the terminal buttons release neurotransmitters, which are chemicals that carry information from one neuron to another. After they are released, they spread across the synapse to bind to the receptors on the postsynaptic neuron. And then next you asked about what each lobe of the brain does. Hearing is actually housed in the temporal lobe, and vision is housed in the occipital lobe. Sense of touch and picturing the layout of space and the environment is housed in the parietal lobe. The movement and complex processes like rational thought, attention, social processing are housed in the frontal lobe. Your final question was, what's the difference between the somatic... The next question was, what's the difference between the somatosensory cortex and the motor cortex? In short, the somatosensory cortex puts together the sensory information that comes from the different parts of your brain, and the motor cortex controls movement. I hope this was helpful and answered all of your questions.